Glory to Ukraine. Today, on February 23rd, 2023, I welcome you in Military Media Center, the single military platform, to inform about the local situation. We will begin with the situation on the front line and security situation in Ukraine. Our speakers today is Deputy Minister of Defense Hanna Maliar, the Deputy of the main Directorate, Operational Directorate of the General Staff, Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, Speaker for the National Guard, Colonel Urshalovych, Security Service of Ukraine, and the Speaker of the State Service of Special Communication and Informational Protection of Ukraine. I will give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Defense, Hanna Maliar. Good morning. We begin our briefing of security and defense forces. We are together in all front lines, including the informational one. Tomorrow, it will be 1 year of the full-scale intervention of the Russian Federation in Ukraine, 1 year of our braveness, the heroic fight of Ukrainians for freedom, and the 10th year of Russian-Ukrainian war, which the Putin authorities started in 2014. On Thursday, February 24th, 2022, Russian Federation started the Genocide Act against the Ukrainians, as a result of which the whole world sees the true face of Russian regime. We will never leave it. We will never forgive those killings, looterings, and destruction of our state. It was very hard to imagine that our reality will be the same. This was during the Second World War, the night bombardments, the Russian tank columns on our native roads, the enemy artillery, which is destructing the streets, roads, towns, and villages. Hostomel, Mariupol, Kherson, Kharkiv, Irpin, Bucha, Ochtyrka. Towns of heroes, people which are heroes. We remember every who struggled of this aggression. The Russia didn't manage to conquer sea, the air, and even to hold those territories which they managed to conquer at the beginning. The Kremlin didn't manage to achieve the strategic success in any direction. We who have suffered, we tired, but we managed to repel the aggression, thanks to the desire of people to the freedom and unprecedented tendencies in the world. We see, like our partners around the world, are supporting Ukraine, and it gives us additional motivation. We are moving directly through the Euro-Atlantic integration way. From designing the cocktail Molotov on February 24th today, on February 23rd, 2023, we are preparing the crews, the Ukrainian crews, to wage warfare on tanks and different sort of heavy material. From the point of view of the material and armament, our armed forces de facto became the NATO armed forces. During the year, the Ministry of Defense performs the task to provide and supply our armed forces with ammunition and armament. You know that during the last year we got the small arms. We managed to make a decision of the NATO forces to provide the heavy material of the NATO standards. We have made the decision together with our partners. The decision was made by our partners to provide us the long-range missiles, anti-ship missiles. Soon we will get Patriot systems and SAMP-T, which is capable to intercept the ballistic missiles. The discussions is continue about the planes. In public space, there are a lot of announcements that the foreign countries are increasing the production, manufacturing of ammunition and armament, because nobody before believed that such a large-scale war may erupt. We managed to hold our position to deter the enemy, because the Ministry of Defense were seeking for the material and armament throughout the world. The massive job was done with the Ukrainian manufacturers for the last year, during the last year, and this year we will see more armament and materials designed in Ukraine, developed in 2021 by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. The defense plan of Ukraine allowed during the first hours of intervention to combine all components of the armed forces of Ukraine, deter the enemy and intercept this motivation. So now I will tell you our 10 main victories of our defense forces, our armed forces of Ukraine. First of all, it's a successive defense of Kyiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv in February, April 2022. Our second big victory is a massive resistance of local population against Russian occupants on the timely occupied territories. Our third victory is that we managed to reconquer the territories, timely occupied territories of Kyiv regions, that we managed to destroy the cruise cruiser Moskva, the main flagman of Russian Black Sea Fleet, that we managed to repel and reoccupy Snakes, Zminy Island, and that our sixth victory, and that we managed to reconquer our territories on the right bank of Kherson region, and on the seventh victory is that we managed to reconquer the Kharkiv region, and the reconquer of the right bank of Kherson region in October 2022. That we managed to develop our air defense systems since October to February 2022-2023. Our air defense is successful. The deterrent of Russian aggression on the east part of Ukraine in December 22 and February 2023. The deterrent is continuing till today. We remember the high price which is paid by our peoples. We are thankful to everybody who continue to defend our country, our motherland. We are thankful to every brave Ukrainians who are holding their fronts. This is your war. It's time to win. Our fight for the right to win continues more than 58 weeks. Today, in Donetsk region, the enemy offense is continuing. The situation is tense. Our defenders do not let the occupants to achieve their targets, and the enemy is suffering the extreme casualties. By very more detailed about the situation on the front lines, you will be given by the representative of the General Staff. Thank you. Deputy Minister of Defense, Hanna Maliar. Now I'll give the floor to the Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, representative of the General Staff. Good morning. The Russian strategic targets haven't been changed. In the upcoming perspective, the Kremlin will try to conquer the key settlements of Donetsk regions and then to conquer and hold the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of Ukraine. The importance for the Russian Federation to conduct the new wave of offensive is caused by the desire to disrupt the preparing of the armed forces of Ukraine for the new offensive. The supply of the armament by the partner countries, and in order to defend the land corridor to Crimea. At the same time, the capabilities of the Russian Federation to achieve the sufficient operational success is limited as a result of the lack of the ammunition and resources, especially those of 122 and 152 millimeters artillery. That is why the Russian Federation is trying to find the resources in order to win in this war. However, the Kremlin authorities says that the targets of this called special operation has not been changed. It's very hard to understand and have a clear understanding by which means those targets will be achieved. The Kremlin is preparing their local population to the long conflict. Based on the another wave of motivation, there is increasing lack of understanding of the society about the future of the Russian Federation. On the border areas of Bryansk and Kursk region, the enemy is holding the groupings of forces with the aim to not allow our forces to be moved to the regions of combat war fightings. At the same time, during the February, the Russian Federation will conduct the strikes, almost 220 from the border on the border guard areas of Chernihiv and Sumska regions. At the same time, the enemy is continuing to use anti-aircraft systems such as C-300, C-400 to terrorize our local population in such cities as Kherson, Kharkiv, Kramatorsk, and others. So since February 10, the enemy conducted the strikes on the critical energetic infrastructure objects. They mainly shooting the objects on the territories of Zaporizhia and Nikopol. Besides, the destiny remains the same. So on February 20, the enemy trying to conduct the another strikings on the objects of energetic infrastructure of Kharkiv city and its region. I have conducted the launch of 11 anti-aircraft guided missiles from the territory of Belgorod's regions, and only one missile have managed to engage the territory of Ukraine, probably because of the poor quality of armament, which doesn't have any analogies in the world, as well as the poor, ill-trained personnel of so-called second armed forces of the world. We are witnessing the increasing numbers of cases on the territory of Russian Federation, especially on the objects of critical infrastructure, almost the same as on the territory of Ukraine. As a result of those cases, the panics have been spreading throughout the Belgorod Oblast. Previously, we got the similar information about such cases in Voronezhsk and Kursk regions. The Belarus population doesn't feel the same, but means continue to give its territory for Russian occupational force trainings. It's necessary to mention that the quantity of personnel and military equipment and material as part of so-called aligned state forces is not sufficient to form the offensive and conduct the offense on the territory of Ukraine. Besides the significant number of a grouping of the Russian Federation on the territory of Belarus Republic, mainly consisted of recently formed units which are conducted the military coordination and restoration of combat capability events on the basis, on the platform of Belarus Republic. The House of Representatives of Belarus Republic, the local House of Parliament, has agreed the bill to implement the death penalty for the state betrayal, for the servicemen and the state authorities. It's not excluded that the Belarus authorities are trying to increase the tension on its own militaries in case if Lukashenko will make a decision to directly take a participation in war against Ukraine. The enemy is continue to intensify the situation around Ukraine to create mutual tensions with the aim to maintain the idea, the possibility of the large-scale offense from the territory of Belarus Republic. So the enemy will continue to engage our objects. They are using drones in order to engage the critical infrastructure objects in the depth of territory of state. Generally, since October, the enemy conducted almost 5,000 strikes, almost 3,500 aviation strikes, and 193 strikes from unmanned aerial vehicles. During the February, our servicemen had managed to shoot down 2 helicopters and 6 airplanes, to shoot down 80 cruise missiles and 84 UAVs. The effective the resistance to the rocket terror is proving to the whole world that the Kremlin is not capable to achieve the given targets and has to change them. At the same time, the Prigozhin he is trying to restore his influence and he is continue his contradiction against the Russian Federation Ministry of Defense, but their authorities are trying to control the private military companies and other paramilitary formations. Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation is trying to pull Prigozhin out of informational space. Based on this, they activize the other alternative private military companies, especially the one which is affiliated with security services of Russian Federation, like the private military company Yastreb. So the Russian occupational forces concentrated the main efforts to conduct the warfare in the east part of our country at Bakhmutsk, Avdiivsk, Mariinsk and Shakhtarsk directions, where the enemy is continuing their offensive assault actions to conduct the rocket and aviation shells, continuing their artillery shellings on the positions of our forces along the whole front line. Defense forces has managed to repel the enemy offensive in the regions of Reznikivka and Dvorichne settlements. In Limansk direction, the enemy the situation remains stable and under control. The enemy continues to restore their lost position in a separate direction, but it doesn't have any success. The most complicated situation remains in Bakhmutsk direction, where the aggressors do not leave their tries to encircle Bakhmut. I would like to stress the fact that the battles at the outskirts of Bakhmut started in July last year and continues up to date. The ambitious military political authorities of terroristic troops wanted till the end of August conquer and consolidate the settlement, but they didn't manage to do that. To conquer and consolidate Bakhmut, the occupant have sent the most trained units of regular forces, as well as the assault detachments of private military company Wagner. Mainly in Bakhmutsk direction, for almost 7 months, the most intensive combat warfares are continuing. Since the beginning of February, they have conducted more than 380 military clashes with our forces. Thanks to the skillful actions and resilience of our servicemen, all of the attacks have been repelled. The enemy advance is provided only after the destroyment of defense fortifications and the necessity to preserve the life of our servicemen. The quantity of killed in the fight for Bakhmut is overnumbering the thousands. So it's a common situation that the enemy is leaving their injured personnel dying on the battlefield. In Avdiivka and Shakhtar's direction, the enemy is trying to conquer the population of Marinka and Volodymyr settlements, but is struggling and getting large casualties, losing thousands of killed and a lot of abandoned material. For example, yesterday our servicemen destroyed 14 tanks, 17 infantry fighting vehicles, 3 TAVT vehicles, 2 UAVs Orlan, and only those who are confirmed the enemy struggling 120 killed and 137 occupants have been injured during the offensives, including the direction of Pobieda settlement south to Marinka. On Zaporizhzhia direction, the enemy didn't conduct any assaults. On Kherson direction, the enemy also engaged the missile launchings and aviational strikes, conducted the shellings from the position of our forces, as well as the critical infrastructure objects. Also, the large portion of the shellings were on the Kherson direction, where the enemy trying to use the multiple launch rocket missiles, other heavy artillery, conducting the shellings on the living buildings, mainly on the downtown of Kherson. The defense force of Ukraine are forced to use the efficient tactics of attrition in the enemy. So for the authority of our state taking the decisions, the measures to create the reserves, which with the aim to provide the rotation and restoration of combat capability of the units which are performing the combat tasks. The strategic loss of Russian Federation in war against Ukraine is inevitable because our state is supported by the leading state of the world, which resources is significantly higher than the Russian Federation. 1 year ago, prior to the intervention of Russian Federation, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, General Zaluzhny, in his appeal to the citizens, said, in this complicated to our state time, we are united, brave, and decisive. That is why victory will be ours. Armed Forces of Ukraine, underlined the Commander-in-Chief, has a very spirit of brotherhood, mutual support and dignity. We are all one country. Together we are needed by the state, and we need a state for us and for our children. These words of Zaluzhny remain the same throughout the time. We Ukrainians have proved to the whole world what does it mean to fight for its freedom, to have a dignity and braveness. The armed forces perform the given tasks and continue their fight. We will withstand and we will win. It's time for a repay. We will do everything to secure the state border of Ukraine and to strengthen the armed forces as much so that the enemy will lose their desire to try to conquer our territory again. Glory to the armed forces of Ukraine, glory to Ukraine. Thank to the Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, to the defense forces for their resilience. Because of the alarm, we will start our broadcasting and we will come back to the translation after the alarm. We are also able to propose you to use our asylum.